New York City area that All Points Bulletin, look out for the guy who we believe is the bomber.
And the question is it just one bomber, or as we first rumored, was this is this an entire cell?
Well, we are learning so much about this guy and his family. Breaking right now, brand new chilling details about the New York and New Jersey terror bombing suspect.
The mother of Ahmad Rahami's daughter says he's a deadbeat dad who has shown to her he hates America.
I'm convinced now. It comes just hours after the dramatic takedown. Looks like one of those bullets hit the assailant. Leland Vitter is live in Newark, in New Jersey, with the breaking details in front of the hospital. Hey, Leland.
Brian, Steve, Ainsley, good morning to you. Ahmed Rahami waking up in the hospital behind me. $5.2 million bail, even though he was shot during that shootout with police. A couple of other police officers wounded. He was doing well enough to have his mug shot taken. Those other police officers who were wounded expected to be okay. Coming in the next few days, the charges against him will be added, meaning the federal officials will add the charges for the bombings up and down the eastern seaboard. This is we learn more about Rahami himself. Multiple trips to Afghanistan, at least one trip to Pakistan where he is believed to have gotten married. Late-breaking details from the LA Times show that perhaps yesterday Rahami's Pakistani wife left the United States, flying back to Pakistan, and according to the LA Times, was intercepted in the United Arab Emirates and is now being questioned if she had any prior plans to what Rahami had been up to in the past 48 hours or in the weeks before as he was allegedly building those bombs. Lots of other dots that were perhaps missed. Could the FBI have asked him more questions, or immigration officials asked questions when he came back into the United States from those countries that have terrorist training camps? Also, this from social media, his brother's Facebook page, a picture of militants with the quote, "I bring men who desire death as ardently as you desire life." And despite all this, the FBI said with all those dots, they hadn't connected any.
There's nothing to indicate that currently he was on our radar. We had a report of a domestic incident some time ago. That was the allegations were recanted, and I don't have any other information. We'll keep digging.
The FBI now looking again today at First American Fried Chicken, the restaurant that Rahami's family owned, and then also at the apartment above where they lived. Still a lot more questions to answer. Did Rahami have any contacts with overseas terrorist organizations? Was he directed by anyone? Did he have any help building these bombs? All things the FBI hopes to answer in the coming days, guys.
Yeah, we'll have to see if the family can live in close quarters like that, and one of them happens to be making pressure cooker bombs with explosive material.
It is a fried chicken place. It would have some pressure cookers, you would think.
Well, and when they asked the dad, did he know anything, he paused. No. He said, no, I don't know anything. But you're right.
Here's a question, though. What did the wife know? Remember, this guy made 3 or 4 months-long trips to Afghanistan and Pakistan. During one of those trips, he met a woman and eventually married her. Well, as it turns out, according to the LA Times, it just crossed a moment ago, she left Pakistan in the last couple of days, and yesterday she was intercepted in the United Arab Emirates, where officials there are trying to figure out whether or not she knew, you know, she's in Pakistan until suddenly this stuff starts. Wanted to know whether or not she knew anything about her husband's plans.
So Laura Ingram is someone who can connect the dots, and we have some dots that connect here.
Hello.
Laura, just a coincidence? The wife you left in Quetta ended up leaving the day you bombed New York?
No, I can't imagine it is a coincidence. And it reminds me, guys, of the Omar Mateen wife who had been tracked by authorities and surveilled by authorities down in Orlando. And then we never hear anything about her. You know, she drove Mateen to that Orlando club.
Yep.
He carnage and everything that happened there. And then we hear she's being surveilled. Then we just don't hear anything else about it. So all of this is so disconcerting on so many levels. But the one thing we know is that we are not able, apparently, to stop these homegrown terrorists from wreaking havoc upon our society. We are not able to do it. Let's admit it. And we can find them after they commit these horrible acts. But we're gonna drop in another 100,000 people whose background we can't really verify. This is just madness.
And our lack of
craziness.
action caused this refugee crisis. And now the president's acting like he's got the big heart to accept everyone. Well, if he acted when his red line was violated, we might have a totally different story.
Well, again, this is Trump's point, and it's been his point all along. We have no credibility right now on the world stage. That's why China is mocking us. That's why countries like the Philippines feel like they're within their right to insult us. And our substantive policy has been a chaotic force in the Middle East. We have helped destabilize that region, and chaos as a result across the Middle East, spilling into Europe as now Angela Merkel is feeling the heat from all her stupid refugee decisions, and now coming into the United States. I mean, it's been a domino effect. It's been a domino effect of incompetence and backseat foreign policy, and I think the American people are starting to get really fed up about all this.
Well, the American people will have a choice in a matter of a month and a half. Hillary Clinton is saying, vote for me if you want the same, and if you like the experience that I bring to that position. And then Donald Trump says immigration security is national security.
Well, I think Trump is absolutely right. Whether it's our border to the south that's porous, or even our border to the north that's porous, or bringing people into the country who we can't possibly discern their backgrounds, this is a ticking time bomb for the United States. We've had a job security issue, wages still lower than they were in 1999. And now another variable in an already very chaotic domestic situation in this country, and more of the same. I mean, everyone can see what the same is. You know, Hillary yesterday on the tarmac guys in Westchester, she said, well, she's had experience sitting in the Situation Room and being part of the strategy to go after the terrorists. First of all, she wasn't in the Situation Room on the night of Benghazi. We don't really, I guess she was at home, or I don't know what she was doing. But is that really what we're going to vote for? You sat in the Situation Room. And what exactly happened after that?
Worked out so well. Laura, going to play a soundbite from yesterday on this program. Donald Trump was on the channel twice yesterday talking about, given the problems we've got, perhaps we should do what Israel does, and they profile. See if you can hear him say racial profiling, because somebody at CNN heard that, even though it doesn't exist. Here's the soundbite.
You know, in Israel, they profile. They've done an unbelievable job, as good as you can do.
Sure.
But Israel has done an unbelievable job, and they'll profile. They profile. They see somebody that's suspicious, they will profile. They will take that person in. They'll check out.
Okay, so they heard that, and they put this up. Trump defends racial profiling in wake of bombs. There's another full-screen shot that says Trump says racial profiling will stop terror. This is just a couple of days after CNN very handily heard Hillary Clinton refer to the New York and New Jersey bombings, but they trimmed her saying that so that they could attack him for calling it a bomb before he was notified by the authorities. What are they doing over at CNN?
Well, I think it's beyond dispute now that CNN is essentially operating as a Clinton super PAC. Every move they make, almost every move they make when it comes to editing sound bites or chyroning, that's the title at the bottom of the screen, is going to be geared toward assisting Mrs. Clinton. And nothing could have been more obvious yesterday than that effort to add a racial element. And why are they doing that? They're adding the racial element where Trump never brought it up, because they know that Trump is starting to make headways in the minority community that can't be happy with what's happening to their economic picture or their safety or their schools. And they know he's making inroads. And so this is why they have to know he's racist. He hates you. He's a terrible person. He's mean-spirited. This is all they have. They can't argue the substance. So CNN it's like a combination of Media Matters, MoveOn.org, and a Hillary super PAC all rolled into one. That's essentially what they're operating as.
All right, Laura, we want to show you a Facebook post from Kathleen Harrington, who is a Kennedy. Kathleen Townsend, Kennedy Harrington. Yeah. Right. This is a picture that she posted on her Facebook page with George Bush, 41. And she wrote, the caption is, "The president told me he's voting for Hillary." Well, we know you know, the establishment doesn't like Donald Trump. What do you think about that?
But all of a sudden, the Bush people come back and say this to Jim McGrath that says George W. Bush will vote will vote this year. It's not clear anyone was there to verify this. Still checking. Keep your powder dry.
Still checking.
And then later on, they said that basically he never committed to voting. He said he's always going to keep it secret.
Well, I don't know. Who knows what the case is? I mean, you know, President Bush is well into his 90s. I mean, he's had some health issues. I mean, I don't know what to make of that. But one thing we do know is that on major issues involving trade and immigration, the pillars of the Trump campaign, the Bushes are much closer to the Clinton worldview than they are to the Trump and, I think, conservative working-class American worldview. So that doesn't really surprise me. I had an old joke a couple of years ago, Clush 2016, what difference does it make, involving Jeb and Hillary? Because just on a whole host of issues, they agree. So that wouldn't actually surprise me if they did vote for Hillary.
Even if he did say that, Laura, is that really her news to share?
Well,
that's,
you know, I think that, again, they see this all. Yeah, guys, they see this all beginning to slip away over the next several weeks. The next 4 or 5 weeks, we're going to see this campaign and the efforts to you know, I think resuscitate a sagging Hillary campaign. We're going to see the most incredible assertions made. We're going to see, you know, the race issue come to the fore. It's going to be blindingly obvious how desperate they are to hold on to power. And it looks like it's slipping away, and they're going to get more desperate. I think this might be another example of that.
Sure. All the battleground states now are tied. All right, Laura, thank you very much. We know you got to go do your radio show and edit Life Set, so have a wonderful Tuesday.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
In the back of the book segment tonight, celebrities and the presidential election. It's no secret that many of them are not on the Trump train, but Bono, the U2 frontman, may have outdone all his famous colleagues.
Look, America is like the best idea the world ever came up with. But Donald Trump is potentially the worst idea that ever happened to America. Potentially. Could destroy it. America is an idea, and that idea is bound up in justice and equality for all. Equality and justice for all, you know. He's hijacked the party. I think he's trying to hijack the idea of America, and I think it's bigger than all of us. I think this is really dangerous.
Joining us now from New York with reaction, radio talk show host Mike Gallagher, and with me here in Washington, David Goodfriend, former aide to President Bill Clinton. Mike, first to you. Listen, celebrities have freedom of speech. They can say whatever they want to say. What about this and what we saw at the Emmys just over the past couple of days?
Well, I mean, there's tremendous irony in a guy who wasn't born in the United States lecturing Americans on how to be good Americans. That always fascinates me. The other irony is that Donald Trump is the quintessential American story. We teach our kids in America that anybody can run for president. Donald Trump has had tremendous success in the private sector. The history books are going to be filled with this incredible year and this crazy year. But for Bono or any celebrity to put themselves out there in this way, you know, I think all of us wish they would just perform their music. It's hard to criticize Bono. I don't like to, because he's done tremendous philanthropic work. But ultimately, it's kind of shocking to hear this deplorables theme, much like Mrs. Clinton did, in just denouncing somebody who has achieved, you know, a pretty stunning American story.
David.
Well, I would disagree. I mean, when Ted Nugent, who's a supporter of Donald Trump, goes out publicly and says, I'm against Hillary Clinton, I think that's fair game. And he speaks to an audience, and he has his rights to, you know, as my friend here says, exercise his freedom of speech. But what's interesting about what Mike just said is that you didn't play the rest of what Bono talked about. I mean, he said, I'm not attacking Trump supporters. He was really careful to say that. He said, I'm not attacking Trump supporters. I understand why a lot of people in the United States would feel that kind of frustration. So that was a really interesting distinction between, hold on, Mike, that was a really interesting distinction between what Bono said and what Hillary Clinton said, number one. And number two, I do think it's interesting that a non-American would say this. I don't think that's a bad thing, because what he was saying is we, at the rest of the world, we look to the United States for leadership leadership in this idea of inclusiveness and freedom. And when you extinguish that, you really hurt your standing around the world.
Do you really think that Donald Trump is extinguishing freedom? I mean, if anything, these supporters are expressing their freedom by saying they choose this guy instead of the establishment Democratic side.
And if I may, David,
let me ask David real quick.
Sorry, Mike, I'll make this quick because I want you to jump in here too. But I think, I don't know, but I think what Bono was talking about were things like the comments today about how some immigrants maybe shouldn't have the right to counsel. You know, I'm a proud American and I love the Constitution. I carry it with me. This is see my initials right there? And right here in the 6th Amendment it says you get counsel. In a trial. That's what he's talking about. If a candidate for president can say that, that's dangerous.
It's a nifty trick to try to say that it's a distinction that Bono is attacking Trump and not his supporters. A record number of Republicans elected Donald Trump. He is the duly elected Republican nominee. He is the Republican Party, whether Bono, a guy from Ireland, likes it or not. Ultimately, what Donald Trump has done has been extraordinary, and people on the left and Hillary supporters don't like it one bit. You can't change what has happened this year. And again, it's a good attempt to try to distinguish between Trump and his supporters. It's one and the same. It's the deplorables thing, and Americans resent it very, very much.
Mike, David, thank you very much. Okay. And before we go, please remember to check out Bill's brand new big bestseller, Killing the Rising Sun, which is #1, by the way, right now on Amazon. And that's it for us tonight. Thank you for watching down here in Washington. I'm Brett Baer, in for Bill O'Reilly, who will, in fact, be back tomorrow. I'll keep it fair, balanced, and unafraid down here in Washington, 6 p.m. Eastern for Special Report tomorrow. And please remember, as Bill says, I think, the spin stops here. We're looking out for you.
Let me give you, Simon, first crack at this next topic. This is a new poll. Sure. Fox News Decision Team just releasing a new update to its electoral scorecard. So Hillary Clinton still holds an edge over Donald Trump in the Electoral College race. But there are some very notable changes on here. Colorado and New Hampshire. Those are states that Hillary Clinton once held big leads in. Both moved from lean Dem to toss-up. In the meantime, Minnesota moves from solid Dem to lean Dem. Iowa moving from toss-up to leaning Republican. Simon, those are 4 big moves. This is brand new, just coming out. What do you think?
Yeah, look, there's no question the race has tightened in the last few weeks. I mean, Donald Trump is finally pulling together the Republican coalition that he was struggling to pull together before. He's made significant advances in the last few weeks, no doubt about that. But look, Hillary Clinton, if the election were held today, Hillary Clinton would still win. And I think if she performs well in these next 3 debates over the next few weeks, she should win the election. But, you know, hats off, frankly, hats off to Trump campaign and Kellyanne Conway for making the strides that they've made in recent weeks.
Okay, Larry, this is how every election plays out for Hillary Clinton. Simon is right. If it were held today, it does look like she'd win. But she always starts out with this monster lead that looks insurmountable. And as time goes by, whoever her opponent is, whether it's Barack Obama or it's Bernie Sanders or now it's Donald Trump, they just close all the way in. And it's a question of time if they surpass her or not. Is there enough time? What do you think will happen?
Yeah, listen, as Simon knows, he's played this game for a long time, longer than me. Trends are very important, and the trend is definitely going against Hillary Clinton. And I think the picture you just painted is a very accurate one. What happens is the American people, the voters, actually get to know who she is. And they spend a lot of time with her, and they realize they don't like her. We've been told that she is a transcendent political figure, that she's the most intelligent, experienced person to even think about being president since Thomas Jefferson. She's Thomas Jefferson in a pantsuit, and she can't beat Donald Trump, a man who's never run for dog catcher. It's not looking good for her, and there's 49 days to go. If they're counting on the debates, they're in trouble.
Simon, real quick, 10 seconds. You counting on the debates?
Well, the debates are going to be really important for both candidates, right? I mean, Trump has got to, do more than she does. He's trailing right now. Pressure's on him much more than her.
Okay, we'll watch. Gentlemen, thanks to both of you. Really appreciate your insight and your time today. A comprehensive new study unveiling the true state of gun ownership in the United States and a new term emerging, the so-called super owners. What does that mean? Who are they?
We have to do profiling, and if we don't do profiling, we're just politically correct, foolish people. Israel does profiling. Not that they want to. There's nothing nice about it, but, you know, they want you to look at a woman who's in a wheelchair that's 88 years old and is barely making it, and let's say comes out of Sweden. She's supposed to be treated the same way as a guy that looks just like the guy that just got captured, who's central casting for profiling. And we have no choice about this. We have no choice about this. We have to start profiling.
That was Donald Trump repeating his calls for profiling following the weekend explosions in New York and New Jersey and the stabbings in Minnesota. Trump says we need to use profiling, just like Israel does, to keep our country safe. But take a look at how CNN reported on this. See there at the bottom of your screen? You can see they inserted the word racial when Trump never actually said we should use racial profiling. Is the media just getting desperate right now to stop Trump? I want to go to Howie Kurtz, the host of Media Buzz on the Fox News channel, for his thoughts. Howie, what do you think of that racial implication that they made?
Well, not only is it factually inaccurate, but in that O'Reilly interview, Bill O'Reilly asked several times whether Trump was going to single out Muslims, and Trump said, no, I'm not talking about Muslims. Now, there's a debate to be had about whether this would essentially amount to racial profiling or profiling of Muslims, but that's not what he said. You can't put it in quotation marks if it's not true. There have been a number of chyrons, as we call these on-screen banners, from CNN and MSNBC trying to fact-check in real time in the presidential campaign. By my count, they've all been aimed at Trump.
You know, I think, you know, you look at we have a banner on our screen right now that the viewer's looking at, and I always tell our team, be very careful with what you put in that banner, because when it's there in writing, it's not open to interpretation, you're not hearing how someone's using the words. You need to be extra vigilant, right, that stuff is correct. Does CNN not employ the same kind of, you know, strictness on that rule, or do you think that they're actually solving for their own bias?
Well, ordinarily, I would say, look, maybe it was just some kid who made a mistake. And by the way, I hope the banner has my name spelled right. That's very important to me.
It does. You better believe it does.
But because there is a pattern here, and some of it gets a little snarky, you know, Trump calls Obama founder of ISIS, parentheses, he isn't. Now, it seemed to me Trump was using shorthand, but obviously he did say that about Obama and Hillary Clinton, by the way. That does suggest to me that CNN and others have decided that Donald Trump doesn't always tell the truth, and it's our job to fact-check him. And I'm all for fact-checking, but it's hard to do it accurately in a 5- or 6-word caption on the bottom of the screen.
You know, it's amazing to see the kind of bias that has come out in this election, for sure. It's on display every day, Howie?
You know, I look at the tone of some of the news stories, not the columnists, many of whom don't like Trump on the left and the right, some of the news stories and the way in which Trump is treated and some of the things that are said, and they just seem like editorials to me. And this is increasingly happening, I think, because the polls are tightening, and a lot of people, liberal columnists, are now freaking out of the possibility that Trump could win this election.
All right, Howie,
That's a technical term.
Make sure you watch Howie this weekend on Media Buzz, Sunday at 11 and 5. I'll see you back here in 2.
New fears of foreign terrorists living among us with the arrest of an Afghani immigrant accused of planting bombs and the terror investigation of a Somali slasher in the mall last weekend.
This is a brand new Homeland Security Inspector General report has revealed that hundreds of individuals ordered deported were actually granted citizenship instead, close to 1,000 of them.
Wow. So how in the world does that happen? Here to weigh in is retired Homeland Security and Border Patrol agent David Ward. Thanks for being with us, David. How does this happen?
Morning.
How do we get 1,000 people are granted citizenship, basically, and
they're supposed to be deported?
They should be out of the country. How does that happen?
This is absolute incompetence by the Department of Homeland Security. This has happened before in 1996 with the Clinton administration, did the same thing. They ramrodded naturalizations through to knock down their backlog. A lot of people had criminal records, but they weren't married up with the case files of these individuals. They were ultimately granted citizenship, yet they were criminals. But now we have 858 special interest country aliens who were ordered deported because of criminal activity, now are among us as citizens. They have access to everything in the United States except the office of the presidency.
Yeah, no kidding. It smells fishy, doesn't it?
It does smell fishy. And here we have these people that have been ordered deported that are among us that can be elected into Congress, they can be elected into the Senate, they can be anything, and we have no idea about who they are. And the problem with all this is the vetting process.
Yeah.
If we can't vet legal aliens in the United States that are already under proceedings and have been ordered deported, and here we have the administration wanting to bring in all these people from the same special interest countries without being properly vetted, we are opening ourselves up to a lot of trouble.
No kidding.
And,
So, David,
and then just this past week, we had 2 terrorist attacks in this country, and both of them were naturalized citizens from special interest countries.
yeah, it's very scary. All right, if you look at some of the facts, one of them became a law enforcement officer. 2 of them gained access to secure areas at commercial airports. 1 gained access to secure areas at a maritime facility or several facilities. How worried should we be?
We should be very worried that they have access to our deepest secure areas, including the airports. They could be TSA agents who could flag other SIC aliens in through the airport. So there are a lot of variables in this, and this also sets us up for their asymmetric war against this country by using covert operations just like this.
Well, that slasher in Minnesota, he was an off-duty police officer or some sort of a law enforcement
He was wearing
officer.
a uniform.
I think he was a security officer.
Yeah.
David, real quickly, this kind of points to what Donald Trump is talking about, that the immigration system is broken.
It is broken. Ever since 2003, when INS was dissolved and incorporated into this thing called the Department of Homeland Security, all the avenues of information exchange were stopped. CIS, Border Patrol, investigations, inspections, all were under the same umbrella and worked together in unison to address the immigration problem.
Right.
Now these agencies do not talk to each other. They're completely fragmented.
And that's the problem, among other things.
What are they going to do about it?
Well, under these 858 aliens that were granted deportation, they can be criminally prosecuted under 18 U.S.C. 1425 and taken to federal court. They would lose their citizenship ultimately and be deported as they should be. And I would hope the next president would follow through, because this administration will not do it. We've already seen a lot of criminal activity that the government has just pushed aside. But the next president needs to get a handle on this and start addressing the problems we have.
Well, let's see what happens. David Ward, this is your department. We thank you very much for sharing your expertise.
Thanks, David.
No, have a good day.
You too.
You too.
Tonight, Hillary Clinton talks tougher about my supporters than she does about Islamic terrorists.
Donald Trump is turning up the heat on the campaign trail against his rival. Laura Ingraham and Herman Cain are here tonight with reaction.
The world is by many measures less violent and more prosperous than ever before.
Then President Obama ignores the growing Islamist threat and claims the world is less violent than ever before.
We must have speedy but fair trials, and we must deliver a just and very harsh punishment to these people.
And Trump says America needs to get a lot tougher with terrorists. Judge Deneen Pirro and Jay Sekulow, they weigh in. All of that plus a preview of tomorrow's town hall with Donald Trump. Hannity starts right here, right now.
And welcome to Hannity. And tonight, the general election is only 49 days away, and Donald Trump, propelled by a wave of positive polls, he's campaigning harder than ever in all the key swing states. And earlier tonight, Trump was in North Carolina. Let's take a look.
We have to, and we don't have any choice, replace a very failed and very corrupt establishment with a new government that serves you, your family, and your country. And that's going to happen. Hillary Clinton represents insiders. She represents the donors, the politicians, the big banks, the multinational corporations, and everybody getting rich off a very rigged system, and we know that. She represents everyone responsible for the decades-long squeezing of the middle class. The middle class in this country has been treated so unfairly as jobs and wealth move to other countries. Hillary Clinton is the chief emissary for globalism. And I'm not running to be president of the world. I'm running to be president of the United States. Hillary is all of a sudden going to get tough. The debate comes and she'll say, I want strong borders. I believe she mentioned the term extreme vetting. Where did you hear extreme vetting before? Only from me. Because I made up the term. I mean, I came up, I said, we need extreme vetting to come into our country. All of a sudden, she's got extreme vetting, and she's got all of these terms. Folks, it's not going to happen. And the reason it's not going to happen is because there's special interest donors. They like it when our businesses move out because they own businesses. They move to Mexico. Lots of advantages for them to do that. No advantage for our country, no advantage for our jobs.
And here with reaction, the editor-in-chief of LifeZette, Fox News contributor, nationally syndicated radio host Laura Ingraham, and Fox News contributor, also a nationally syndicated radio host, Herman Cain. Look at this. If you go back 18 days ago, Reuters and others were predicting a landslide for Hillary, Laura. Now, 18 days later, they show this massive surge in electoral votes for Donald Trump. It's literally 243 to 242 in the Electoral College by their estimates and the polls that back it up. What has happened and where does this go?
I think pragmatism and common sense is winning the day, and I think Hillary's health stumbles certainly didn't help her at all. The more revelations we get about her dishonesty on the private server, the graft that was taking place with the Clinton Foundation, all leads voters to conclude we've had enough, more of the same. We're sick of politics as usual. Let's change this up. Let's switch things up with a businessman who has maybe a less ideological but more pragmatic way of handling difficult problems. And I think in the end, a lot of these voters might be swinging in that direction just because of the common sense that is involved in thinking things about refugees, Sean. When we know 5 million refugees displaced from the Middle East, a lot of them because of, frankly, failed policies of this administration. And we're supposed to now take in 100,000 plus people and think it's all going to work out well. I think people are very hesitant to do that. And Trump speaking to concerns such as that. And I think that's beginning to resonate.
You know, one of the biggest areas where we've seen a jump, Herman Cain, is among black and Hispanic voters. He's now up 7 from where Mitt Romney was with Hispanic voters. One poll actually had him at 19 percentage points for black Americans voting for Trump. I'm going to be with him at a town hall, predominantly black Americans. He's been to black churches. He's reaching out. Polls show that Hillary's black voters are switching to Trump. That was an article in the New York Post. Obama came out harsh yesterday, says he's personally insulted by black Americans who support Trump. Trump doing better than Romney with Hispanics. What has changed here? Is it the fact that the last 8 years have not been good to the minority community?
Absolutely. In addition to what Laura said, that's one other thing that's happening. Some people are afraid to go from Hillary to Trump, so they are undecided. But the American people are not stupid. Black people are not stupid. That's why you see a surge in those numbers, and that is a good thing. People are not believing President Obama when he says, if you showed in a previous clip, that we're safer and people are more prosperous. No, we are not. They are not stupid. They are not falling for it. And as a result, that's why you see a surge in Trump's numbers, not just nationally, but also among blacks and Hispanics.
Let's go to next Monday, 6 days from now, Laura. Hillary Clinton vows to come out swinging against Donald Trump. And, okay, I don't know what that means, but she says she's not going to take any insults lying down. Why do I suspect the insults are going to be coming from her?
Don't you half expect, Sean, that the Democrats are following around David Duke with a GoPro camera, hoping that he says something that's pro-Trump, because they can then put it in one of their, ad campaigns and say, oh, the KKK likes Trump. I mean, the whole thing is so obvious. For anyone who cares to spend 5 minutes thinking about this, when you don't have a record to run on, when you have no record of accomplishment, when your record is checkered with dishonesty and misrepresentations and ethical problems, then what do you have? What do you have to do? You say, well, I sat down in the Situation Room and I flew around the world and the whole world's in flames, at least in the Middle East. What does she have to say? She has to say Donald Trump is this, that, and the other thing. Donald Trump's a racist. All those things. That's
racist,
all she
sexist,
has.
misogynistic, homophobic, xenophobic,
so
Islamophobic.
Sean, back to the debate. I was just going to say, Trump has to remember the great moments for Reagan in these debates when they tried to do similar things to Reagan. He was stupid. He wasn't smart. He has to be like, you know, there you go again. I mean, is that all you have? Really? That's the debate here,
See,
Hillary?
I agree
that
with
I'm a
that.
bad person?
See,
I mean,
because Hillary's going to do this, and I don't think this is hard to figure out. I would anticipate this is she can't run on Libya, she can't run on Egypt, she can't run on Iraq or Iran or Afghanistan or Putin or North Korea, China. Okay, then she can't run on Obama's economic policy, which she says she's going to continue. So she can't run on honesty and trustworthiness. So what's left? Ad hominem attacks. What she said, basket of deplorables, that'll come up. The key for Trump, Herman, I think, is as she pokes and prods and aggravates and annoys and tries to piss off Trump and irritates him, she's going to try and get a reaction, get him to roll his eyes like Al Gore or get him to huff and puff. And I don't think Trump's going to fall for it. If he does, I think it'd be very foolish. He needs water off a duck's back, an impenetrable shield. Nothing she says can bother him, and he comes out a winner.
She's going to come out swinging, but the only thing that she comes out swinging with are names, name calling. And you're right. He doesn't fall for it. She's going to look very weak because he has put more substance on the table in the last several months than she has ever talked about. So yeah, it's only up to name calling to try to provoke Trump such that he comes after her, and then the liberal media is going to try to turn it into a sexist attack. I don't think it's going to work because I don't think Trump is going to fall for it.
God forbid Donald Trump walked over like poor Rick Lazio and tried to hand the poor woman a piece of paper. The damsel in distress couldn't handle the stress of somebody getting in her space and her grill a little bit, which I thought was absurd. All right, you agree, Laura? I mean, is that the biggest challenge? Beyond that, I would think that with all the speeches and interviews Trump has done, he doesn't really need a lot of prep. I think to cram his brain with facts and figures would be a bad strategy, in my opinion.
Yeah, the gotcha questions. You know what I would say when they start pulling the gotcha questions? Well, you know, the Secretary of Defense of Poland, Donald, you know who that is, right? I mean, he needs to say something like, look, I'm sure Hillary knows all the names of all the government officials of every country on the planet. Because, frankly, she was probably going around, flying around on our dime, asking them for donations to Clinton Foundation. But what I know is I know solutions, okay? She knows all the minutia that I can learn with my top staff and all the focus we're going to have. I'm going to solve the problems for America. She can pass the pop quiz, but I'm going to pass the most important test, which is leadership and competency and delivering results for the American people. So he can't get sucked in to say, I don't know. He's not going to know all the minutia. If they try to pull the pop quiz, I think he can turn that on them really easily.
Agree with that. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back. More Laura Ingraham, Herman Cain, right after this, and also coming up next tonight.
We should all understand that ultimately our world will be more secure if we are prepared to help those in need.
That's Obama at the UN earlier today, ignoring the growing Islamist threat, and actually said the world is safer than ever before. And he also was talking down the U.S. He's going out the same way he came in. And later tonight.
We must deliver a just and very harsh punishment to these people.
Donald Trump saying it's time for America to get a lot tougher with dealing with radical Islamic terrorists. Judge Jeanine Pirro, Jay Sekulow weigh in on that and much more tonight on this busy news night here on Hannity.
Donald Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr., taking some heat today for a tweet that he sent out comparing Syrian refugees to a bowl of poisoned Skittles. The image says, if I had a bowl of Skittles and I told you just 3 would kill you, would you take a handful? Trump Jr. then says that it's time to end the politically correct agenda. Joining me now, Matt Schlapp, former White House political director under President George W. Bush and chairman of the American Conservative Union, and Brad Woodhouse, president of Correct the Record and former communications director for the Democratic National Committee. Gentlemen, welcome. Never thought we'd be beginning a panel talking about Skittles, but it seems that Donald Trump Jr. has a bit of a gift for getting in trouble on Twitter, as does his dad sometimes. So, Matt, what do you make of it?
I think the metaphors in politics almost always get you in trouble, but the underlying policy is what's really resonating with voters, Martha, which is we have no way to vet these refugees coming over from Syria and many other countries that have a huge terrorism problem. We just saw with the bombs that were set off in New York and potentially in New Jersey and other places, that we have a very serious homeland security problem, and we should only be bringing people inside our borders who love this country, want to be part of this country, and want to become, hopefully, eventually citizens of this country. We should not be a way station for people who we know really very little about.
Brad, do you believe that we have a very serious homeland security problem in this country?
Of course we have a homeland security problem in this country, but this tweet by Donald Trump Jr., I mean, look, let's just say it. The isolationist, xenophobic, racist, nationalist apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I mean, this wasn't an accident. I mean, we've seen Donald Trump Jr. just last week talking about marching people into gas chambers. We saw him tweet a white nationalist. No, we did, Matt.
Brad,
Matt, you know well.
Brad,
you know well that.
Brad, hold on. I have a question for you because I want to talk to you about the sentiment of it, which has to do with whether or not we have a homeland security problem, and whether, I mean, Donald Trump Jr. is not running for president last time I checked. So let's talk about the issue that he's talking about.
Sure.
Do we have a problem with letting in people and not knowing whether or not there are people who want to do us harm among them? I mean, you know, we saw that quite clearly over the weekend in New York and in New Jersey.
Well, look, the Cato Institute, which, by the way, is funded partly by the Koch brothers, a very Republican libertarian group, just came out with a report, a study, an analysis. Says there is an American has a 1 in 3.64 billion chance of being the victim of a terrorist attack by a refugee. It's infinitesimal. It virtually doesn't exist. I mean, look, Martha, this a bad apple spoils the bunch argument, which